What's up guys, Zags here, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about my predicted lineup for the F1 2018 season. So it's starting to get into the time of year where people are bringing out rumours, stuff is starting to circulate in the F1 scene. So I'm going to give my first predictions. There's of course going to be probably another video or two talking about this once a few more people get slotted into place and the whole sort of lineup seems to be sort of a little bit more cemented. We'll probably talk about it a bit more, but these are my first impressions of what the grid might look like in 2018. So we're going to go through them in alphabetical as they are on Wikipedia. So we're going to start off with Ferrari. Now neither of their drivers are confirmed for next year, and I'm hearing reports, I've been told, that Vettel's not going to sign a new contract at Ferrari unless Raikkonen does, but I don't know how true that really is. It doesn't sound entirely realistic in my opinion. I mean, I don't know whether Ferrari would really want to Raikkonen for another season, because let's be honest, he's been quite far off the pace this season. I mean, he's obviously had quite a good few races, but in comparison to Vettel, he has been quite far off. So I'm thinking possibly that he won't be racing the next season, Raikkonen, but I do think Vettel will stay, especially if he wins the championship. And I'm really thinking about a person to sit alongside him. It's so tough. There's a few people to name: Sainz, Perez, Grosjean, to name a few. Even Leclerc could be even in that sort of seat opportunity, but if we were to go for one of those four, I think it would be Sainz. I think that Grosjean's going to stay at Haas. I think that was pretty much confirmed yesterday. I think Perez, I don't know, I just can't feel it right now. I can't see Perez going there, but that's probably going to switch around me. He's probably going to sign now. But for me, I think it's going to be Vettel and Sainz at Ferrari next season. But Ferrari needs to see a massive improvement in Sainz, because Sainz has really, in recent races at least, gone on a bit of a decline. So for Force India, I think they'll keep the same driver lineup as this season. I mean, I'm not sure. I think Perez, there's a definite chance he could leave, but I'm not 100% sure. I think he possibly could go to Ferrari. I'm not 100% sure, but it's all up there right now. Who really knows? But Ocon is signed for next season, so I think it'd be a good job for him to get another season under his belt in sort of a mid-level team, somewhere that he could possibly get a podium here and there somewhere in the season. So I think it'd be good for Ocon to stay. Perez will obviously be looking for something higher. He's getting towards his 30s now, so he's definitely thinking, I need to be in a top 10. He had that chance at McLaren, but it didn't really work out for him. So we'll see what happens. There's a chance, there's a possibility that Perez could go to Ferrari, but I think they'll probably keep their driver lineup of Ocon and Perez for the 2018 season. So an interesting bit of news yesterday was that Haas have come out and said that they think that Grosjean and also Magnussen are going to stay at the team for next season. Now, this is slightly conflicting in other stuff that I've heard, because I've heard the Leclerc's definitely going to basically be in F1 next year, and the most likely team he'll be in is obviously Haas, because they are sort of the Ferrari B team right now. They had Gutierrez when he was their test driver to be put in the Haas team. Of course, that didn't really work out, but there's a chance now Leclerc could be in F1, and I feel if they were to keep Grosjean, I definitely think Magnussen would be the one to be sort of cut from the team. But then there's also this chance that Grosjean could just go elsewhere, because Grosjean is obviously, I think he's in his 30s now. He probably is looking to be in a top team. I think his gamble was to go to Haas to get that promotion to Ferrari ASAP, but now there's people like Sainz, there's people like Perez in that sort of contention as well. It's going to be very tough for him to be in that Ferrari seat next season, especially Raikkonen couldn't even leave. He might stay, but I keep predicting, like, for the last few years Raikkonen's going to leave, but he keeps on staying. So yeah, for me, I think next season Haas, I mean, they basically confirmed it, so I'll go with what they've said, but who knows, people can backtrack many times in F1, we all know that. So Grosjean and Magnussen, I'd say, at Haas for next season. McLaren's a big one as well, because we know Alonso wants to leave if they have another Honda year. So what's going to happen here? I think they probably will get their Mercedes power unit in there for next season. I think Mercedes still have got that spare power unit left over from Manor, so I think we'll see McLaren Mercedes once again next year. So I think Alonso probably will stay. He obviously wants to see a big improvement in the car as well, not just the engine, but the car does still need some improvement to be up there battling for race wins. But with the Mercedes engine, you'd say McLaren, well yeah, McLaren would be up there battling probably with the Force Indias much more regularly. And I think Vandoorne will stay alongside Alonso next season if the Mercedes power unit sort of pulls through. I think Vandoorne will basically be at McLaren like whatever next year. I think they're going to just basically write off this year and say, yeah, let's go for it again next year. And unfortunately, this year didn't work out for them. It was like the third year of their sort of project with Honda. Just hasn't worked out really whatsoever. So it'll be interesting to see whether they do take these Mercedes power units, which is very rumoured that they will, and I think Alonso will stay if that is the case. So as always, we get rumours that Lewis Hamilton wanting to either go to Ferrari, which I might talk about in another video, or also just retiring. There's always that sort of rumour floating about. I think that's when someone's just run out of things to say in the sort of media world. They come out with something like that, and generally people like me will make a video on it, so they got us there. So yes, I think Hamilton and Bottas probably will stay at the team for next year. Bottas has definitely proved to me, at least, that he's good enough to be in Formula 1 at a top team. He did have a bit of a shaky start. The first few races weren't like incredible, but I definitely feel he's got on top of it now, and he's battling right up there with Hamilton, and he can match him on quite a few occasions right now. Of course, Silverstone, I don't even think, if Bottas started on like second place on the grid, I still don't think he'd beat Hamilton. One of Hamilton's best races ever, but I think he's definitely good enough for the top teams, and I think Bottas will still partner Hamilton and Mercedes next season, because let's be honest, I can't really think of a much better lineup. I can't think of someone that they could nab from a lower team. You know, one of the top teams maybe, but they're probably not going to want to swap drivers. So I think Bottas probably the right man for the job at Mercedes alongside Hamilton. I think Red Bull have also confirmed that basically they're going to be keeping the same driver lineup next year. Ricciardo and Verstappen, a very good driver lineup. Obviously Verstappen's becoming ever more frustrated about the reliability and just the unpredictability of the Red Bull and the engine. That's just all not working out for him this season. He got a good result in Silverstone, but I think before that he had like five retirements out of 7 races, so really unlucky for him. He didn't have the greatest of starts this season, and yeah, I think he will stay. Jos Verstappen, his teammate, his dad said that he's going to be staying at Red Bull next season. I think he's like his manager, so yeah, I think there's a good chance that they'll both stay next season, but of course there's always rumours about both these guys going to Ferrari and maybe even Mercedes at this rate, so who really knows, but I think these guys will stay at the Red Bull team for at least next season. Then I think the season after is going to be more interesting, when possibly some of the bigger names do start to retire in the next 1 or 2 seasons, maybe like the Hamiltons. I know he says he can go on forever, but I think he'll probably switch elsewhere to some point. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see when those big names like Hamilton, Alonso, you know, maybe even Vettel, when those guys retire, where are these guys like Ricciardo and Verstappen going to go? They surely won't be at Red Bull for forever. So Renault is a really interesting one, of course, this year with Palmer and Hülkenberg, but lots of people actually linked with this seat. But Robert Kubica is the guy that's on everyone's lips right now. He's testing in the post-Hungary race Grand Prix weekend. He's doing the test for Renault in the 2017 machinery. I don't think he's driven the 2017 machinery yet, so it'll be really interesting to see how he performs. I'm really excited to see how it all works out for him, because of course he's a big name in the sport that we lost unfortunately to a crash in rallying. So I'm gutted that obviously that happened for him, and I'm really happy that he's at least been linked back to Formula 1 now. I don't think rallying really worked out for him. He was decent. I mean, I think he won the WRC2 championship, but it didn't really work out for him in the main category. But I'd love to see him back in Formula 1. Of course, he's like 32, 33 now, so he's getting there. He's getting near to his sort of peak basically, so it's going to be tough for him to take like another 5 or 6 years, you know, reclaim the years that he lost in Formula 1. It's going to be very hard for him to keep going forever, but I think it'd be great for him to be back in Formula 1. I think alongside Hülkenberg as well, that is a really good driver lineup, and we're looking for Renault to next year be sort of competing for podiums. I mean, personally, they've been better this year. I think Palmer's had an incredibly unlucky year. That Renault power unit still is a bit unreliable, and the whole car's quite unreliable. Hülkenberg's had an incredible season in comparison to Palmer, who I do obviously quite like, but he's also quite, you know, he's quite a lot slower than Hülkenberg on the general occasion, but still he's had a lot of bad luck. He would have got a decent amount of points, I'd say. He might have got points in a few occasions this season, but the car was quite unreliable. But that's the way it goes in Formula 1, and I guess he's probably going to get the axe at the end of this season. Of course, there are other people that could be linked to the Renault seat. Grosjean has always sort of been part of the Renault family, and other people like Gasly, who knows, Sainz, people like that, they could be linked to Renault, but I do think they'll stick with Hülkenberg and probably pick up Kubica for next season, as long as he sort of does well in these tests and see how well he compares to like Palmer and to Palmer and Hülkenberg, sorry, in the test. I think they'll probably pick him up, but that'd be great for Formula 1, and hopefully for me at least it does happen. That'd be absolutely incredible. So Sauber's a tough one right now, because of course they are in big financial difficulties, but for next season it looks like Ericsson's going to stay, because I think one of his key investors is going to be, well, has actually invested a massive amount into the team, so that's good. I think he's actually had a pretty good season, Ericsson. It's hard to tell because it's such a bad car, but I think Marcus Ericsson's actually been really good this season, outperforming the machinery. I think both drivers have to be fair, and of course they've been getting near points on some occasions where you would definitely say they probably don't have the car underneath them to do it, so fair play. They've both had a good season. I do think Verline's going to move on, however, so that leaves the second seat open. So if Leclerc was to go to Haas, I think maybe Magnussen could get that seat. Palmer could also get that seat. But I think the strongest link to this team is Matsushita, who is a Honda young driver, is a Honda Dream Project driver. I think he is basically a Honda driver. And with next year, by the looks of it, Sauber's going to be the only team running the Honda power unit. It looks like Matsushita from GP2 or F2, sorry, is going to be racing for them next season. So Ericsson and Matsushita, you could say a bit of an unpredictable lineup. You don't know what's going to happen, but I think both of them on their day are incredibly fast. So we'll definitely see. But hopefully for Sauber, they get the investment they need to get back into the midfield and just battle with the guys. But right now, it's sort of them at the back of the grid by themselves. I mean, then they've got McLaren a little bit ahead of them. Then the mid-pack's quite sort of bunched up, quite a bit ahead of them really, so it's tough for them. They're sort of battling at the back by themselves at the moment, but with some key sort of funding, maybe McLaren, Honda, maybe if they can help with a bit of funding there, something will go their way for next season. But the Honda Power unit has not been too great, so it's quite tough to know what's going to happen next season for them. So Toro Rosso is an interesting case. So of course you guys know my favourite driver at the moment is Danny Kvyat, and unfortunately for him he's had a pretty bad season, but apparently he's basically confirmed for next season at Toro Rosso, which is really interesting. It's the last year of his Red Bull contract. They sort of signed him up to this big Red Bull contract and they can place him in whatever series they want. So it's the last season of Danny Kvyat's sort of Red Bull contract, and they're hopefully going to put for him in the Toro Rosso team for next season. I think he definitely needs a year to prove himself. He's not even that old. He's like 22 years old and he's already had like 3 or 4 years of experience in F1. He's not like... He's been quite unlucky, I'd say. That personally, I'd say he's been unlucky. Of course, I support him, but I'd say he's been very unlucky this season. Of course, he's had a couple of little silly accidents there, but he's been a very unlucky, I'd say. So, anyway, I think he's going to stay because they basically confirmed he will. It looks like Sainz is going to move on, however. Who knows what team? Maybe it could be Renault, could be Ferrari, could be someone like McLaren, but I highly doubt it. So I think next season Sainz is going to move on, so it means Pierre Gasly is going to be going into that team. It's really interesting because Pierre Gasly is racing in Super Formula right now in Japan. It's a bit of a weird series. You only get points for like the top 6 or something, so it's hard to mount the championship challenge unless you basically win like all of the races. So I don't think Gasly's doing like particularly amazing. I think he's sort of mid-pack in the Super Formula. I could be completely wrong. I haven't checked the standings in a few weeks, so I don't really know, but I think Gasly and Kvyat probably would be a good pairing for Toro Rosso next season. Then, of course, I assume Kvyat's going to leave Red Bull or leave Toro Rosso at the end of next season, at the end of 2018. But who knows? If Sainz does finally decide to stay, he'll race for Toro Rosso, and that'll probably mean that Kvyat is out of a seat in Formula 1. But who else would take him up? I don't know. So lastly on the grid we have Williams. So this year they're obviously racing with Stroll and Massa. I think Stroll has really proved himself so far this season. He's really proved to, well, he's obviously at the start of the season was very tough for him, but I think since he's really proved that he's getting better and better. Of course, the British GP was a bit of an off weekend for Williams in general. I think Austria was as well. They both were struggling quite a bit, but they still got points in Austria. They got points obviously in Canada, and got a really good result there in Azerbaijan, Baku, for Lance Stroll to get the podium. So I think he started to really prove himself. And also Felipe Massa, he's been pretty decent this season, a bit up and down, but he's still been a good driver for them. But for next season, it's a tough one to know. I'm assuming Stroll's definitely going to be there next season. He's obviously got a big sort of contract with them in terms of like sponsorship, but in terms of their second driver, it's a very tough one. It's between Massa and Wehrlein in my opinion. That's why I've left Wehrlein out of Sauber, for example, because I think he's a Mercedes young driver. They're going to want to push him into somewhere in the midfield. Williams is probably still a bit of a step behind Force India right now, so I think they have Ocon in the Force India and they have Wehrlein in the Williams. They can give them both a really good shout, and then basically which one of them does well, they can probably put them into Mercedes in a couple of years' time. So that's my idea. Stroll and Wehrlein for next season, but Massa could also be in there as well if Wehrlein decides to stay at Sauber. But I think that's quite unlikely. With them going to Honda Power Units, I don't think he'll stay at Sauber for next year. So through my assumptions, I'm going to say Raikkonen and Massa probably are going to retire at the end of the season. I know Massa doesn't really want to retire. I assume Raikkonen doesn't want to either, but I think maybe... I said this last year, it's probably time for both those guys to just step aside. Not that they're bad drivers, just I think it'd be great to sort of get some new, younger drivers into those top seats, and I think that's probably the best thing for Formula 1. I mean, Massa, Raikkonen, they had their time in top teams. They were incredibly quick in their prime, but they are slightly past it now. As much as I love them both, I don't think they should probably keep a seat for much longer in Formula 1. I just love to see some new guys getting some chances at a good team. So that's pretty much it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you could remember to leave a link down below about your sort of predicted lineups for the 2018 season, that'd be really epic. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Remember to leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe if you're new to the channel, and I'll see you guys soon. Goodbye.